Hello, everyone. Welcome to this quick little demo that I'm going to do regarding the FortiGate on version 5.6.3. And the demo is getting a FortiGate to participate in high availability. So we're going to cluster two FortiGates together using the newest version of FortiOS. And we're going to look at the different steps that we have to do to accomplish that. Now, for this little lab demo here, for those that have taken my Fortinet class, I have simulated the lab environment using uh, Eve Network Simulator. So everything here is a live topology, and these are all the different devices. Now we're actually going to focus on our remote location. Let me zoom in here, and we have a remote FortiGate right here that's acting just the way we want it to. So it's one FortiGate. We have two WAN connections. We're just going to make believe that the 10.200 networks are public instead of private IP addresses. Okay. And then we also have a LAN connection here on port 6. All right. And the whole goal here is that we have an identical FortiGate just sitting here, and we would like that FortiGate to participate in high availability. So before I do anything though, and I'm going to split up this video into a couple of videos so you can skip these parts if you're not interested. I'm just going to take a moment to see how my FortiGate is set up on my network. So I'm going to log into my Windows machine here. So this machine right here is this machine on the topology. I'm going to go to a web page, and I'm going to go to the management IP address on this local area network. So that's going to be 10.0.2.254. All right. We'll give it a second there to connect. And this is the web GUI of this FortiGate right here. So I log in using my super secret password of admin no password. Don't ever leave it at its default. In fact, I'm impressed with the new version of 5.6. It yells at you for leaving it. So, but we're just doing a demo here, so I'll say later. But as you can see here, I've called this my remote FortiGate. It is licensed. Okay. It is running 5.6.3, and I'm not going to lie, I am more familiar with 5.4, so this is going to be a journey for me too. All right. They've definitely done a lot with the GUI and also a lot behind the scenes. But if you notice on our network, and if we go to interfaces here, we have a port 4 WAN 1, which is going to be the port 4 right here, port 5 WAN 2, which is this port right here, and also port 6, which is our LAN interface for our internal traffic. So in order to make these management ports, remember we have to go to our interfaces and turn on these management protocols. If we do not want those management protocols to be accessible, like for example here on our WAN interfaces, we never have HTTPS or HTTP especially to be accessible, right? We're just doing that for class. But essentially, you cannot have any kind of management, okay, without those turned on. And right now, that's all that is configured on my FortiGate. And as you can see, we have the proper firewall rules here too. If we go to policy and objects, IP4 policy, we're going to have a simple internet access here to simply have a stateful firewall to go out there and allow traffic through. So nothing too fancy, but everything should work. So if I just go to google.com, I should have no problem going to Google. Hello world. All right. Good times. So there you go. Um, Everything is set up just the way it's supposed to. But now we're going to introduce the second FortiGate. I'm going to pretend, let me minimize this real quick. I'm going to pretend like this bad boy is right out of the box. So the first thing that I'm going to do in the first video is I'm going to get this bad boy up and running, and then I'll stop the video there, and then the next video is going to actually have them clustered together. All right, so if you know how to set up your FortiGate right out of the box, that is fine. If you don't though, this is how it happens. So I'm going to pull it out of the box, I'm going to plug it in, I'm going to plug in a console port, and then I'm going to console into it. There you go. I'm going to hit admin, and then do a get system stat here. And as you can see, it is not licensed. It says valid, but that's just because it's a trial. All right. Um, So what we're going to want to do here is to at least set up the second FortiGate, right? The second FortiGate to the internet so I can drop the license on it. And that's pretty much it. That's the most important part because it needs a specific ID number before it will be able to join the group. So as you can see here, it's going to expire in 15 days, February 27th, and we don't want that. All right. Now, if you have a physical FortiGate, the second that it reaches out to the internet, it should be able to find the serial numbers and get everything working that way. But with the virtual FortiGates, I want to do it ahead of time. So um, here we go. So I'm going to go ahead and close out of that session, and we have to do some wiring, don't we? So a limitation of my environment here is, unfortunately, we have to power down the switches in order to connect to them. All right. Normally we don't have to do that in real life, but here I am. I'm also going to take no chances in this demo. So I'm going to shut down by doing an execute shut on this new FortiGate. All right. So that should power down the FortiGate. And right off the bat, I am actually going to match the ports here. So port 4 on my FortiGate environment that's working right now. I'm also going to connect WAN 1 to port 4 to the remote FortiGate. All right, so I'm going to do it in more detail later on, but I'm still just going to keep that going there. So, so here we go, port 4 to our first WAN switch. All right, and then I'm not going to do the secondary right now, but I am going to connect port 6, all right, to our LAN. This way I can use the web configuration GUI to administer to this FortiGate once we get it up and running. So, all right, there we go. So I have physically plugged it in to, and let me just move this over and move this down a bit. So I've physically plugged in port 4 to WAN 1 and port 6 to LAN 1. So they're mirroring this remote FortiGate. All right. Now I can't just set the identical IP addresses on this remote FortiGate. I'm going to have to at least put in the same subnets here. So let me go ahead and power on my switches again. I guess I could have left that second one alone. All right, my bad. But once those are turned blue here, there we go. I can go ahead and turn on this FortiGate. And I'm going to give just enough access to this remote FortiGate for me to be able to access it through the GUI. Okay, so here I am back in my console port. It might take a second to load, that's fine. And I apologize, I'm in a virtual environment here, so I have limited resources on my laptop, so it just might take a second to boot up. All right. So once again, this is through the console port. Now, most FortiGates and Fortinet products will actually have the default IP address on port 1 of 192.168.1.99. All right, so that way you know how to get to them through the web GUI off of the BAT. But on the virtual machines, though, if I do an admin no password and I do a config interface or config system interface, and then I do a show, I don't have any IP addresses. All right, so um, I don't even need to worry about port 4 right now, but I am going to go to port 6 and set an IP address within the 10.0.2 range. All right, that doesn't conflict with the FortiGate that's already there. Once I do that, then I turn on allow remote access. I should be able to get to the GUI. So let me do that real quick. So edit port 6, right? Set IP address, or is it just set IP? I think it's set IP. 10.0.2. I don't know. 253 for right now. Now the FortiGate, the remote FortiGate right here is 254, and that is the default gateway for my LAN interface here. So, all right, and that's going to be a /24 network, and then I'm going to set and allow access to HTTPS and ping, right, and SSH to administer the FortiGate using that IP address. All right, so I'm going to hit end, and now I should be able to ping 10.0.2.254. Haha, execute ping 10.0.2.254. All right, and as you can see, my remote FortiGate is pinging my second FortiGate. So we know that at least we can access it on the LAN side. So that is fine. I'm going to unplug my console cable. Don't need it anymore, right? I'm going to go into my remote Windows machine now, and I am going to go to 10 dot, come on, wah, wah, wah. Here we go. 10.0.2.253. And I am now in that second FortiGate. It'll probably give me a connection error there just for the certs, and that's fine. Let me make sure that I can ping it too. So ping 10.0.2.253. So yeah, it can talk to it just fine. So now if you guys remember, I did not allow HTTP traffic. So it's probably not knowing to do a secure connection. No big deal. I'll do HTTPS : um, // We'll see if that works. Oops. Come on. All right, so this is saying that it's giving me an error because of a cipher mismatch. Now, the FortiGates that are not licensed will come with protocols, secure protocols that are lower than what we'd use in production. So this, so you can't take the trial FortiGates and use them in production, and that's what it's saying there. No big deal. Remember, our goal is to connect this to the internet to get it licensed. So I'm going to plug back in my console port, call myself a turkey. I'm winging this, by the way, guys. So just to show you how it's going to work in real life. All right. So I'm going to do a config system interface, edit port 6, do a show, and now I'm going to do a set allow access to ping HTTP, HTTPS, and also SSH. Now, why am I doing HTTPS now? Well, because once it becomes licensed, it will start using those accepted ciphers, right? Those accepted levels of encryption, and we won't have to go back in here to dink with it. So there we go. Sure. Now that HTTP is allowed, right? I can go back to my Windows machine, and I can actually just access it using HTTP. There it is. Okay. So I'm going to do an admin. I know. I'll say later. All right, so here we go. We have our remote FortiGate, okay? And it does have a serial number, but I promise you, it's not licensed. So this actually says evaluation license, okay? I'm going to want to at least to reach out to the FortiGuard services and to make sure the license is okay. So let me go ahead and do some magic here. First thing I'm going to need to do is go to my network, go to my interfaces, and make sure that port 4, which is our WAN port. Now, I'm not going to worry about configuring the details on the secondary FortiGate because they're just going to get synced by the primary once the heartbeats actually come into play. So I want just enough to get internet access, maybe update some definitions, right? Some virus definitions or IPS definitions, which we'll skip at this point. But yeah, anyway, so I'm not going to name these aliases or anything, but I am going to give it a 10.200.3. Whatever. Let's do a 10 here. This FortiGate, by the way, the main FortiGate has a 10.200.3.1 IP address on port 4. So we're just putting it on the same subnet. All right. That is a /24. Okay. And once again, I'm going to put on these protocols just because it's a learning environment, but I'm going to put ping on there. I'm also going to do FMG access because I'm actually using a FortiManager as my FortiGuard server. All right. So it needs to be able to talk to my FortiManager. All right. And sure, we'll do SSH. Normally we wouldn't, but you know what? Here I will. Whatever. So, all right. So there you go. There's one. And then we also need our network and our static route. We need at least one default gateway. So I'm going to come here to create new. I'll leave the quad 0. And we're going to say the next hop is going to be 10.200.3.254. And this would normally be what, guys? It'd be our next hop to our ISP. So the interface that's popping out of is 4. It detected it using a route lookup, which is what I wanted. I'm going to hit OK. All right. And now that should be enough for it to reach out to the FortiGuard services. Now, why do I not need a policy to do this with IP4 policy? Because the licensing of the FortiGate and the FortiGates talking together in high availability is actually FortiGate to FortiGate or Fortinet product to the FortiGate. So it has its separate um, firewall rules for that. And that's exactly what we did when we allowed the FortiGuard services to talk through port 4 by allowing that FortiManager access. All right. But here we go. Now that that is set, I'm going to go to my dashboard, okay? And I'm going to drop the license file on my VM. So it's nice and licensed when I join it to my cluster. So, all right. If I can remember how to do it in 5.6. Okay. Normally, oh, here it is. My license is right here. Resize or remove. Cute. All right, here we go. FortiGuard. Let's see if there's a license place for there. Update, update. All right. FortiGate VM license. Now, normally on 5.4 and in 5.2, actually, it's on the dashboard. It might have been on the dashboard. I got impatient waiting for it. So I'm going to drop the license file here. I'm going to select upload. And I'm going to go ahead and find my license file, which hopefully I'll have downloaded somewhere already. I might not. All right. Looks like I don't. So, okay. Let's see here. Just a second, guys. This is where I should really pause it um, while I try to navigate back to my home machine out of the virtual environment. So let me hit the pause button here because I'm just going to have to do some magic behind the scenes that we normally wouldn't have to do in real life to get out of my hypervisor. So just one moment. All right, guys. Sorry about that. Like I said, I just needed to find the IP address my hypervisor was on. So, but where do these files come from, by the way? You'll see these license files when you register a FortiGate through the FortiGuard services. And then I'm just going to drop a license file on here. All right, we're going to hit OK. It's going to go ahead and say I'm going to reboot. While it reboots, it's going to reach out to the FortiGuard services. And it is going to go ahead and come back with a yay or nay. So, all right. So in the meantime, I'm gonna terminal back in here and just make sure that it licensed all right. So right off of the bat, my serial number has changed to the one that I am using, and it doesn't have that. It does not have that weird evaluation serial number, so I'm good to go there. So at least I know it took the license, and then once it actually communicates out with the FortiGuard services, we'll get a thumbs up saying that we now have a valid state here. So let me do a real quick get system status. All right. See how it says pending right there? That's normal, guys. It will just take a second for it to actually reach out there and be able to find it. So it should be able to do that without a problem here. Just doesn't happen right away. So, oh, there it is. Ta-da! So this is verification through the CLI that our license is good. Good times. So, all right, now I'm going to go back into my Windows machine, and I can just kind of go back to 10.0.2.253. Now remember, this is the FortiGate that we're bringing into the cluster. All right, so here we are. Okay. Now, if you guys notice, I get a warning, and that is fine. All right. But at least it's having me do the HTTPS now. All right, because it's a licensed FortiGate. Before it said the cipher was too low. It wasn't able to do it, so on and so forth. So, all right, no big deal. Okay, so here we are. So before we join it to the cluster, all right, I'm going to give it some unique properties here. For starters, I'm going to change the host name. Host names do not get synced with high availability. The host name will still remain the host name for the FortiGates that are joined into the cluster. Also, the serial number does not change. All right. Um, let's see if I can remember how to change it on here. Um, here we are. So I just named this remote FortiGate HA, right, to distinguish it from my main remote FortiGate that is still running my production network. So here we are. I'll call it remote FortiGate high availability. All right. There we go. Also, you're going to want to make sure the time syncs up too and all that best practices. But for right now, um, that is really all I need at this moment. So I'm going to end the video there. So what did we do here? We took the remote FortiGate out of the box. We gave it an IP address through the CLI. We plugged it into our LAN switch, which is a part of the same subnet of the IP address that I gave it on port 6, okay? And then once I set the allow access, I was able to administer it through the GUI and at least get it licensed, all right? Because you need to have a valid license in order to do clustering because it will not join into a cluster with one of those evaluation IP address or evaluation serial numbers. So, and even if it does, we'd obviously never use that in production. So let me go ahead and stop the video there. When I get back, we're going to do the wiring for our FortiGates, and then we're also going to join into to the cluster. So, all right, I'll be right back.